Listening to Family Justify, and this is how the story begins.
Hi, I'm Natalie Romero. I'm 38 years old, and I was standing at Fiumicino Airport in Rome when I realized my family had left without me. No boarding pass, no phone, no passport in my hand. Minutes earlier, we were arguing at the check-in counter. I had said one sentence, "I can't send more money right now." That was enough. My parents collected their passes. My sister followed. No one turned back. When I reached the desk, my ticket was gone, canceled. Security told me to step aside. That's when a man in a tailored coat walked toward me, calm and precise. "Pretend you're my wife," he whispered. "My driver is about to arrive." I froze. Then he added, almost casually, "Trust me, they'll regret this." I didn't know his name yet. I didn't know his reasons. All I knew was this: my family thought they'd stranded me. They had no idea what they'd just started. I should explain what led up to that moment at the airport. For most of my adult life, I was the reliable one. The daughter who sent money when it was temporary, the sister who didn't ask questions when plans changed. After my divorce, my parents said they worried about me. They used that word often, worried. It sounded like care. It wasn't. They worried about my savings. They worried about my condo in Manhattan. They worried that I might make decisions without consulting them. My sister Marissa framed it as concern too. "You've been through a lot," she'd say. "Let us help manage things until you're stable again." Stable. It became their favorite word. I was working full-time, paying my bills, rebuilding quietly. But every boundary I set was treated like a symptom. If I said no to sending more money, they called me selfish. If I asked for space, they called me distant. If I questioned decisions, they said I was spiraling. The trip to Europe was supposed to reset everything. A family trip, a fresh start. I helped pay for most of it. At the airport, when my mother offered to hold everyone's documents to keep things organized, I didn't argue. When Marissa asked to borrow my phone for photos, I handed it over without thinking. I didn't realize those small moments were part of a pattern. At the counter, my father leaned in and said, "You need to start thinking about family again." I replied calmly, "I am. That's why I can't keep draining my savings." That's when their faces changed. My mother sighed. My sister went quiet. My father said, "If you won't listen to us, maybe you need time to reflect." Minutes later, they had boarding passes. I didn't. When I finally understood what they'd done, my chest tightened, not with panic, but with clarity. This wasn't a fight, it was a test. They thought fear would make me comply. They thought isolation would soften me. What hurt most wasn't the ticket. It was realizing they were ready to rewrite my story. By the time I stood alone near the help desk, I could already imagine the calls they'd make. "She's not herself. She's unstable since the divorce. We're just trying to protect her." They weren't worried about me being stranded. They were worried about losing control. And standing there, surrounded by strangers, I understood something I hadn't allowed myself to admit before. This wasn't about money. It wasn't about concern. It was about ownership. And they had decided I was something they could manage. I didn't cry in the car. By the time we left the airport, something steadier had taken over. Not anger, focus. The man beside me watched the road, then spoke like someone used to moving quietly. "My name is Damian Hayes," he said. "I'm based in New York." I nodded. "Natalie Romero." He didn't ask me to relive the scene. He just said, "You're safe for now." On the flight, he explained the structure. A charity gala in New York, conservative partners, internal pressure. He needed stability on record for a short window. "I need someone believable," he said, "not scripted." I listened, weighing my reality. No phone, no access to my documents, a family willing to strand me to get compliance. Damien offered clear terms: secure housing, a new phone, a financial payment, and help figuring out what my family was really attempting. When we landed, dawn was breaking over Manhattan. The penthouse was quiet and controlled the kind of place where nothing happens by accident. A housekeeper named Rosa greeted me with a calm smile and led me to a guest suite. I slept. When I woke, my new phone was already buzzing. Missed calls from my mother, then my sister, then my cousin Paige. I called Paige back first. "Natalie," she said, "your parents have been calling everyone." "What are they saying?" I asked. Paige hesitated, then answered carefully. "They're saying you had a breakdown in Rome, that you walked off, that you're not thinking clearly." My stomach tightened. "And they're talking about getting help," she added, "legal help, to protect you." That's when the airport made sense in a different way. It wasn't just abandonment, it was setup. Paige lowered her voice. "They're focused on your Manhattan condo. They keep saying someone needs to manage it before you do something reckless. The condo wasn't just property. It was the only thing my grandparents left directly to me because they knew how hard I'd worked to stand on my own. I asked Paige for everything: messages, draft statements, anything she could forward. My screen filled with screenshots within minutes. The language was polished and calm, concerned, reasonable. But the pattern was obvious. They weren't checking on me. They were building a narrative. Stress after divorce, a few anxious emails, canceled plans, anything that could be shaped into incapable. Not lies exactly, just pieces cut to fit their story. I went downstairs and found Damien in a small office papers spread in neat stacks. "I need to show you something," I said, handing him the phone. He scrolled and his expression hardened. "This is coordinated," he said, and timed. He didn't call it family drama. He called it strategy. "I want to answer it with records," I said, "not arguments." Damien nodded once and made a call. That afternoon, his attorney Grant Coleman arrived. Sharp suit, calm eyes, direct questions. He reviewed the screenshots and said, "They're laying groundwork for a temporary control petition. It's thin, but it can move quickly if you don't respond." "So we respond," I said. Grant laid out what mattered: financial history, work record, proof of daily competence, independent confirmation, not family opinion. I gathered everything I could verify: bank statements, tax filings, proof of steady income, emails from clients thanking me for reliability, a simple timeline of the trip and what happened at the airport. I created a folder on the laptop Rosa brought in. I labeled every document by date. I made an index that anyone could read. No dramatic titles, just clarity. That evening, Damien admitted something quietly. "My brother is trying to push me out," he said. "He uses grief and one bad investment to frame me as unstable." Different story, same weapon. I looked at him and said, "Then we don't debate it. We document capacity." The next morning, Grant arranged an independent evaluation for me. Not because I doubted myself, because I refused to leave an empty space where their narrative could grow. When it was done, the conclusion matched reality: clear, competent, stable. Back in the penthouse, I wrote 4 lines on a notepad and slid it into my folder. "Protect the condo. Protect my name. Don't explain to people committed to misunderstanding. Let paperwork speak." By the end of the week, my family still believed I was isolated and panicked. They believed their story would land first. They didn't know a record was already forming around me. Quiet, organized, unshakable. I wasn't disappearing. I was building structure. And once structure exists, it doesn't beg. It holds. The gala arrived sooner than it should have. Black tie, cameras, smiles that lasted exactly as long as the flash. I walked in beside Damien, my hand resting lightly on his arm posture. Calm pace, unhurried. This wasn't performance, it was presence. Inside the ballroom, conversations flowed the way they always do when money is watching itself. Measured, polite, alert. For the first hour, everything held. Then Damien's phone vibrated once. He glanced down and didn't hide it. "A piece just went live," he said quietly. "Anonymous source, questioning my judgment." I didn't ask who the source was. We both knew. Across the room, a potential partner, one Damien had been negotiating with for months, shifted his stance when he saw us. Arms crossed, smile thinner. I waited until the moment felt natural, then stepped in. "Mr. Reed," I said, extending my hand. "Natalie Hayes." He blinked, recalibrating. "Pleasure." We were just discussing the waterfront numbers. I continued, tone even. "I know the article raised concerns." I didn't deny it. I didn't defend it. I opened my phone and turned the screen slightly. "Here are the revised projections," I said. "Post-adjustment, conservative assumptions, oversight built in." He studied the data. Longer than he meant to. "These weren't public," he said. "Not yet," I replied. "But they're real." He nodded once. "Let's talk after the auction." By the end of the night, the contract was signed. With conditions, with structure. Not perfect, but solid. Back in the car, Damien loosened his tie and leaned back. "That article won't stop," he said. "My brother is pushing harder. He wants this framed as a pattern." "And you need something unmistakable," I said. He looked at me, not surprised. "A record," he said. "That can't be argued." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was deliberate. "Marry me," he said finally. "On paper, 1 year." I didn't flinch. "Terms?" I asked. 300,000, he said. "Legal protection for you. Full control of your public image. An exit clause, no questions." I thought of my parents' draft statements, of words like unstable and reckless. "I keep my name," I said, "and final say on what we say publicly. He nodded, agreed. The paperwork was filed days later at City Hall. No ceremony, no audience, just signatures and witnesses. When I folded the document and slipped it into my folder, I didn't feel rescued. I felt armored. The shift was immediate. Damien's board quieted. My family's filings stalled. The narrative changed because the record changed. A married executive with documented capacity, a woman with verified competence and legal backing. When my parents arrived weeks later, they came with certainty. "You've gone too far," my father said in the foyer. "This isn't you. This is exactly me," I replied. My mother said, "We're trying to help." "No," I said calmly, "you're trying to manage." They offered a deal. "Withdraw the filings," they said, if I signed over control of the condo. I handed them a document prepared by Grant. "Withdraw your petition," I said. "Issue a statement acknowledging it was unfounded, or we proceed." My sister looked at the floor. My father didn't answer. They left without an agreement. Weeks later, the review ended. The petition was dismissed, not loudly, decisively. The record held. That night, I sat at the desk in the guest suite and closed my folder. For the first time since Rome, there was nothing pending. No arguments waiting, no explanations owed. I had stopped asking to be believed. I had made myself undeniable. They came without warning. No call ahead, no request. One afternoon in Palm Beach, as the house sat quiet and the ocean moved steadily beyond the glass, Rosa knocked softly. "Your family is here," she said. "They're asking to see you." I didn't rush. I didn't hide. I closed my notebook, stood, and walked to the foyer alone. My father stepped forward first, jaw tight, shoulders squared. "You've gone too far," he said. "Marrying a man you barely know. Cutting us out." My mother followed, voice smooth. "We're worried about you. This isn't healthy." My sister Marissa stayed behind them, eyes lowered. I folded my arms calm. "Let's be clear," I said. "You didn't come to check on me. You came to regain control." My father scoffed. "We raised you. And you abandoned me," I replied. "At an airport, without a phone, without my documents." My mother's face flushed. "That wasn't abandonment. You were emotional. You needed time." Time, I said, doesn't require canceling a ticket. Silence settled. Marissa finally spoke, barely audible. "We thought you'd come back, apologize. Then everything would calm down." I looked at her. "You let them take my phone," I said. "You watched them walk away." Her eyes filled, but she didn't answer. My father stepped closer. "We'll drop the filing," he said. "If you sign over management of the condo, just until things stabilize." I nodded once, as if considering it. Then I reached into my folder and handed him a single page. "This is my offer," I said. He read. My mother leaned in. "Withdraw the petition immediately," I continued. "Issue a written acknowledgement that it was unfounded. In return, I won't pursue further action." My mother laughed sharp. "You wouldn't take legal steps against your own family." I met her eyes. "I already have." That was the moment something shifted. Not anger, recognition. Marissa looked between us, tears falling now. "I didn't think it would go this far," she said. I answered softly. "It always does when control is the goal." My father folded the paper, jaw tight. "You've changed," he said. "No," I replied. I stopped explaining. They left the way they arrived, together, unresolved. The door closed behind them and the house returned to its steady quiet. I didn't collapse. I didn't second guess. I sat at the table, opened my folder, and made one final note. Boundary delivered. Response documented. For the first time, there was no urge to call them back. No hope for understanding. I had said everything that mattered, in writing, with witnesses. And when silence followed, it wasn't punishment. It was relief. The court ruling came quietly. No dramatic hearing, no confrontation. Just a written decision. Petition dismissed. Insufficient evidence of incapacity. No guardianship warranted. One paragraph ended months of manipulation. The filing had backfired. Public record doesn't shout, but it remembers. And in their community, questions began surfacing. Why would parents try to take control of an adult daughter's assets? Why now? Invitations slowed. Whispers followed. The condo stayed mine, untouched, unmanaged by anyone but me. A week later, an email arrived from Marissa. Subject, "I'm sorry." She wrote about fear, about staying quiet to keep peace, about realizing too late that silence was still a choice. I read it once, then closed it. Some apologies explain pain. Others arrive after the damage is done. The contract marriage ended exactly as planned. Clean, private, no spectacle. The protection remained. The control stayed with me. Alexander and I parted without bitterness. What we built was never romance. It was strategy, mutual respect, survival without illusion. I launched my firm 6 months later. Small at first, then steady. Gala referrals turned into contracts. Contracts turned into reputation. The condo became my office by day, my sanctuary by night. Every decision mine, every signature earned. I stopped waiting for family approval, stopped explaining my boundaries. What I learned is simple. Betrayal doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it arrives smiling, calling itself concern. And walking away isn't weakness, it's clarity. If you've ever been forced to choose between peace and permission, between truth and family pressure, you're not wrong for choosing yourself. You don't owe access to people who confuse love with control. This wasn't revenge, it was ownership. And that changed everything. If this story helped you, please subscribe to Family Justice Files. Your support keeps these stories coming.